1 second, my.
Oh, it's all started now. I
Thank you
think
so
we
much. Radhe Radhe. Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Radhe Radhe. So let's get started. Are you able to see my screen?
G, you can see that. Yeah.
Great. So I am currently in Denver, which is supposedly called the Switzerland of US, and the Switzerland of Denver is my hometown, Palampur. Okay, that's what I feel. But nevertheless, let's move on. We'll start with our opening prayers, like we always do. So I'm going to recite it, and you're welcome to do that at your place as well. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanurmardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagat Gurun. Krishnam Vande Jagat Gurun. All right, so Radhe Radhe, good morning, good evening to all of you once again. So let's get started, like we always do with our Soul Soup segment. And today we are going to talk about, we are on the series of Success, Happiness, and Fulfillment series. And we were covering what is true success. And today we will pick up another topic that is directly related to our happiness quotient in life, or the satisfaction or the fulfillment that we feel, right? Rather, it's an impediment, because the question itself would suggest what we're going to talk about, right? What is the sovereign recipe for disappointments? And that is when we build expectations. Okay, so this is one thing we don't have to build. Our conditioned state just makes us, do that. Could be anybody. It could be something, from some person around us, relative around us, friend around us, job, a lot of things. That is how our conditioned state is. And when we build expectations, it's just a matter of time before we get disappointed. That is how it is. In fact, Maharajji had gone on to the extent of saying that anything that you put your faith and trust in this world to give you happiness eventually would be the cause of disappointment to you. It's kind of a law. So what are these expect? Let's try to look at it in perspective. We'll probably have 2 sessions to talk about it. We'll talk about it a little technically as well. Why is it unfair to expect? But today we will get the thought process going. So it's like, let's talk with a story. So here's a beggar. He's going around begging. But guess what? The other person whom he's begging from is a beggar as well. And then comes along a third beggar who's asking from both of them. Okay, now if you think about this story, you will say, this doesn't make sense. You should have common sense that if he has to ask money, he should ask from somebody whose coffers are filled up or pockets are filled up. But then, like Shamji, you would have guessed it by now, right? When some story comes up, it's basically a story of our life. So we are no different from these beggars. And the other beggar is the people from whom we seek happiness from. Now, unless, of course, it is somebody who has attained perfect happiness, they are just not capable of giving it. Okay, you may think they have, you may repose faith in them because of your conditioned state, but the fact of the matter is, unless they are perfected soul who have nothing more to attain, they don't even have the ability to do it, give you any happiness. And then we keep on switching beggars. Okay, the first beggar disappointed me. Now let's move on to the second beggar. Now that beggar could be in form of a spouse. Right? People keep changing spouses as well. That beggar could be in change of, friend. It could be in terms of, boss and stuff like that. The point is, material world is limited when it comes to giving the happiness that the soul is seeking. And that expectation leads to disappointment. Oh my God, the relationships, the foundation of the relationship starts crumbling because that the person just does not have the ability to make you happy. There's another technical reason for that as well. We'll look at it mathematically, statistically, why it is impossible for another person to meet what you are expecting. But that's for tomorrow. Let's get to the topic of our discussion today, because I know we have a hard stop. So, but for now, when you think somebody is not able to give you happiness that you thought, that person should be able to give them the benefit of doubt, that that person is a beggar, he doesn't have the ability, and so are you. Conversely, it works both ways around. When you do that, we'll have a little more acceptance around that situation. um, I mean, there could be extreme cases, of course, but at least this thing will help us see things in perspective, that when we roam around with these expectations, we need to curtail our expectation, as opposed to um, having this de facto setting that we can extract happiness out of people around. Okay. Now let's move on to our Bhagavad Gita discussion. So this is a shloka that we are reciting. We'll probably take 2 or 3 hands today. I know we have a hard stop today, so I'm going to recite it, and then we'll take maybe 3 hands today and get the discussion going. Tamev sharanam gaccha sarvabhavena bharata tat prasadat param shantim sthanam prapsyasi shashwatam. All right, first in, first out, top 3 get the opportunity.
Aparna ji, Radhe
राधे
Radhe.
राधे
Radhe Aparna ji.
तमेव शरणं गच्छ सर्वभावेन भारत तत्प्रसादात् परां शान्तिं स्थानं प्राप्स्यसि शाश्वतम्.
Very
Thank
nice. Thank you,
you,
Aparna
Radhe
ji.
Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. Riya ji, please go ahead.
राधे राधे
Radhe Radhe.
तमेव शरणं गच्छ सर्वभावेन भारत तत्प्रसादात् परां शान्तिं स्थानं प्राप्स्यसि शाश्वतम्.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Riya ji. So let's get started. The shloka we have picked up on surrender, where Lord Krishna is saying, see, we are technically on 4.37, but because this is a foundational topic, we decided to bring it, do that a refresher on the concept of surrender, because we keep throwing out this word grace, surrender, faith. So it's important that foundational understanding we all have, as we go along. So this shloka, Lord is saying, surrender exclusively unto him with your whole being, O Bharat. By his grace, tat prasadat para means by his grace, you will attain perfect peace and the eternal abode. Now today, we are going to talk about what actually is one of the biggest impediments, or something that stops us from completing our surrender. This is not a first life, and we have been through this journey before as well. We have come across saintly personalities as well, but there is something that stops us. There is an impediment, and let's talk about it today. Okay. So here's a guy who goes to Grand Canyon. He's a pretty adventurous guy until he finds himself into this situation, a cliffhanger. Okay, he's stuck, barely hanging. And at that moment, there is, only one place he can go. You can see that there's a deep canyon below him, and he's barely hanging along. And that moment, he remembers God. He remembers all the days he would go to the temple and give prasad to God. So he does remember that, and he lets out a prayer. He says, God, can you please save me? Okay, that prayer comes out from the heart because he's in dire straits. Not as disastrous as Draupadi, but here his life is at stake, of course, right? He says, God, can you please save me? And guess what? God replies. He said, yes, that's my child. I'm here to save you. God does reply. And after that, after a while, he replies back, is there anyone else other than God who can save me? So he doesn't have faith, actually, that God replied. And that is where we are lacking as well. When we have 100% faith that God is there to protect us, that is the real trick, right? That is where some deficiency is there, which we are not able to bridge, because that doesn't come so easily. In fact, spirituality, it is called, Swamiji so beautifully said, that it is a journey of faith. It is definitely a journey of faith, right? Even the Bible says a faith worth seed of a mustard seed worth of faith can move mountains. So it is definitely a journey of faith. Now let's look at it through some beautiful stories, real life stories we are going to talk about. And then that would help us look at this concept, for us to decipher what we want to decipher out of it. Okay, so let's get started. So here is a rock climber. Okay, her name is Brenda. Maybe in previous life her name was Vrinda, but in this life she's Brenda. Okay, so Brenda was almost halfway to the top of a tremendous granite cliff. Some people like rock climbing, and she was doing that one of the days. And she was standing on a ledge where she was taking a breather, during her first rock climb. Now, what happens is a safety rope, it snapped against her eye and knocked out her contact lens. The contact lens that she was wearing, it knocked it out while she was doing that. And she said, all right, great, she thought. Here I'm stuck on a rock ledge, so far away from the bottom and top of this cliff, and now my sight is blurry. She's not able to see clearly because it happens. She looked and looked, and it landed on the edge, but it wasn't there. She was hoping against hope to find that out, but she could not, unsurprisingly. Of course, she started panicking, because this is not the place to lose your vision becoming blurry, because one misstep can cost you your life. And she started praying. She prayed for calm, and she prayed that she may find her contact lens. Okay, this is the prayer she let out at that moment. Then what happens? Now, when she got to the top, a friend examined her eye and clothing for the lens. She said, let's check out your clothes to see if you've got your lens stuck somewhere. Like we try things in this moment, and they do that, but it was not found. She was calm, relatively calm, but she was sad that she could not clearly see across the range of mountains, the very reason for which she had climbed. And then it reminded her of a Bible verse. She said, eyes of the Lord run to and fro throughout the whole earth. Lord, you can see all these mountains. You know every stone and leaf. You know exactly where my contact lens is. Please help me. She let out a prayer. Okay. And when what happens later is they hike down the trail. They started hiking down the trail to the bottom of the cliff. And there's another party who was coming up, the cliff. And, and when they met the other party, guess what happens? This party says, one of them shouted out, he said, hey, you guys, anybody lose a contact lens? Okay, they say, anybody lose a contact lens? Now, what has happened here? Let's look at it. What are the odds of she finding contact lens by dropping it off how tiny the contact lens are? It's, of course, a little startling, right? Now, what happened was, they asked, how did you find it? They said an ant was moving slowly across a twig on the face of the rock carrying it. So what are the odds of an ant finding it, carrying it, and the other party coming and seeing that and then recovering it and checking out with them? Just imagine, right? Now, the story in life, there are situations that happen. We always don't get what we deserve, but we deserve not what we desire. And there's a reason that we may not be aware of a lot of things, right? Now, the story doesn't end here. Her father, Brenda's father, you'll see the cartoon on the right-hand side. So when she told him this incredible story of the ant, the prayer, and the contact lens, he drew a cartoon of that ant lugging onto that contact lens with this caption. And the caption sent, Lord, on behalf of the ant, I don't know why you want me to carry this thing. Ant has no freaking clue what this thing is, what she's carrying. Anyway, ant is one of the few creatures which can carry, I think, 100 times or 10 times more weight than its own. Okay, and that is probably why God makes us ant as well, so that we can carry the weight of people around, which we forget conveniently when we come back as humans. So he said, I don't know why you want me to carry this thing. I can't eat it, and it's awfully heavy. But if this is what you want me to do, I'll carry it for you. Okay, so this is the caption he put. Now, you may say it is a coincidence, but think about it. What are the odds, right? So the power of faith. Now, I'll tell you another story. This is even more fascinating and queer story. Now, it is a story of a neurologist. Okay. If somebody is a doctor here, you may be able to appreciate it more. It's a story of a neurologist, and the name of the neurologist is Dr. Prasad, okay, he's a neurologist at the Beach Candy Hospital in Bombay. This is also a real story. So he was a neurologist, and there was a World Neurological Conference in Calcutta where he was supposed to be felicitated rather, not facilitated, for his Lifetime Achievement Award. So he took a flight to Calcutta. Okay, he took a flight to Calcutta. And what happens is that flight, it runs into some rough weather. And when it runs into rough weather, they have to do an emergency landing in Jamshedpur instead of Calcutta. So emergency landing in Jamshedpur, by the way, that is the city where I've studied. So that's where the flight lands. So the doctor thought it's just a 4-hour drive. Let me just take a cab. So he takes a cab along the way, but the cab also hits some rough weather because the weather was not good. So cab is also having a torturous drive and it comes to a halt. So basically malfunctioning of the cab. Couple of hours down so he's stuck in the midway. It's drizzling, it's pitch dark. But as the luck would have it, he finds a hamlet, near a hamlet, the car stops and he finds a very humble house. And he knocks at the door and a lady opens it. Okay, lady opens it and he asks the lady that, do you have a telephone, so that I can make arrangements to call another cab because I have to reach Calcutta in a couple of hours. She said, sorry, we are poor. We don't have a phone, but it's pretty cold outside and it's raining. Why don't you come in and have some tea and biscuits? So he accepted the offer. He said, all right, fine. And he said, you stay here and we can arrange for something maybe in the morning once things clear up. So he agreed to that and they sit down. And when they sit down, they start talking. And no, not talking, but this family, it was a very humble family and they were preparing for their kirtans for the evening. And she was talking about God, pretty religious. So Dr. Prasad, he said, you want to join? He said, no, I don't believe in God, right? He's a doctor and doctors are, I won't stereotype it, but he was an agnostic doctor. He didn't believe in God. Nevertheless, she said, you know what? It's all God's grace, because of which it happened and you could come here and it's our fortune to be, play host to you and all that stuff. And we have two cows, Gauri and Ganga. And God is so amazing, they feed on grass and they give milk. Isn't it magical? He said, no, I don't believe in God. He said, no, even this rain, if you look at it, all the water is pulled up from Bay of Bengal and it is showered here. Isn't it so magical? God is able to, facilitate this kind of a process. So he just gave a very, sarcastic smile, thinking that these people, they don't understand the law of physics and how things work. But nevertheless, he didn't say anything. But anyway, during the course of discussion, again, they saw his little boy, and little boy was behaving a little differently. And as a matter of fact, he asked, what's going on with this boy? Okay. So father explained, you know what, he's our little boy and he suffers from severe epileptic seizures. And so he said, you haven't seen any doctor or something? That he said, no, we went to Jamshedpur doctor, but they said we can't treat him. And he has to go to Bombay and it's pretty costly. And Bombay and I told my wife that we are poor, we can't afford it. And my wife said that if God desires, let's leave it to God. The solution will knock on our door. And he said, we came to know that it can only happen in Bombay and there is only one doctor, in Bombay who can do this. The operation is called collapsus calostomy, I believe, where you cut the two hemispheres of the brain and it cannot pass the signals. And that is how this disease can be cured. And it is only Dr. Prasad. Okay, so when doctor heard that, he could, he started relating everything, how his this he was invited on that moment to Calcutta, how his flight ran into rough weather, his cab ran into rough weather, it stopped functioning, he stopped at a precise location, knocked at the door, and it happened. Now again, this is something you can pass it off as a coincidence, or was it her sheer faith that resulted in it? It's up to us to decide, but this is how God can answer prayers and things like that happen. There are plenty of other stories as well. But I thought this is something I'll bring in because we're talking about the concept of surrender, and faith is an integral part of it. That God is protecting us. That faith is the secret ingredient which can enable the grace of God and things that we call as miracle, serendipity, coincidence, and whatnot. Okay. So with that said, let's move on. Yesterday, we were talking about the 6 aspects of surrender that we have spent a good amount of time, at least 4 or 5 sessions on this topic. These are the 6 principles. And yesterday we started discussing how do we relate it to the real life scenarios. So let's build on this discussion, and I would like to see, I think yesterday was a pretty intense session where people poured their hearts out and explained, the situations that they have gone through and how exercising faith, acceptance, and surrender around those situations has actually helped them on their journey. So let's build on that. I had posed all these questions. You are free to add more questions here as well. See if this matrix, if we can build, if we can exercise all the 6 principles for all these scenarios, or is there a limitation where you may come back and you say, you know what, doesn't make sense to surrender here. How do I surrender here? Or I need to do 50-50. 50% I need to exercise my control and 50% surrender. Any of the situations that you can relate to and want to say that, surrender principle is not applicable or applicable, that is where we'll spend a little bit of time today. Anybody?
In the meantime, we have a question in the chat window from iPhone G. What is the criteria for God to answer our prayers? Is it only faith or karma as well?
See, the prarabdha aspect of it anyway, we have to do. It's like an arrow which has been released, right? Having said that, when we do surrender, right, the God basically, if you look at it, surrender, he's willing to make exception to the rules as well. But the condition is surrender for that. Because the biggest exception that he makes is, think of it, when you surrender, he burns the entire stockpile of your karmas. So even your karmas are burnt off at that moment. So surrender is that Ramban or that silver bullet that can make magical things. It is magical itself, right? That God is saying, I'm going to burn off all your karma. So he's already making the biggest exception to the rule when you surrender, which is the perfect surrender. Having said that, even when we are on this journey, God does keep on gracing you, to keep on motivating you, to keep on inspiring you along the way, right? So if you need this much grace, you surrender this much. If you need this much, surrender this much. When you perfect your surrender, your journey is complete. So those graces would come along the way as well. And those graces can come in inconceivable ways. We don't know what is that grace, inconceivable ways. We may think this is bad, this is good, but we don't know. I'll tell you another story now. There was a farmer. So what happens? One day, there was a horse that came running to their farmland. And everybody said, oh my God, you've hit a jackpot. It's like a Rolls Royce coming and getting parked in your garage, right? From nowhere. So horse is a big deal. To own a horse in those days used to be a big deal. So people came and congratulated him. Such a good thing and magnificent thing has happened to you. So he said, good or bad, only God knows. Okay, only God knows. So he was nonchalant, basically neutral to that. So then what happens? His son starts riding that horse and goes to the forest and falls down and breaks his leg. Okay. So then what? No, hold on. So I think jumped the gun. So then they said, okay, so what happens after that? Okay, son story will come. Sorry about that. I've lost my chain of thought. So next day, what happens? The horse runs away and never comes back. So people said, oh, such a bad thing has happened. You got the Rolls Royce from nowhere and now it has vanished. He said, good or bad, only God knows. Then what happens? The next day, that horse comes back with 5 other horses. He said, you have hit a multiple jackpot now. Extremely good thing has happened to you. He said, good or bad, only God knows. Then what happens? His son starts riding one of the horses and breaks his leg. He said, this is the most terrible thing that has happened. This horse coming to your house and your son breaking his leg. He said, good or bad, only God knows. Then what happens? There is a war that breaks out in the neighborhood. So the king starts recruiting people, all the young boys. And because his son had broken his leg, he was spared. And all the youth got killed in that war. So now what is good, what is bad, we have no clue. Right? We look at it from a material consciousness, from our conditioned state. And, God gives us what is beneficial for us, not necessarily what is pleasurable for us in short run. So that is how it says. In fact, there is a prayer. Swami Beautiful says that, right? One of the things that we can ask God is, Meri chahi na karo, main murakh agyan, Teri chahi hi mein hai Prabhu mera kalyan. That don't do what I desire. God, don't do that. Do what you think is best for me. That is what will be the best thing for me, right? And in fact, one of the worst things that can happen to us is if God starts answering all of us desire prayers around our desires. I need this, I need that, I want this, I want that, I will. If he starts doing that, we are on a suicidal mission, and it's the worst thing that can happen to us. So God, he knows exactly what we need, and like our well-wisher, he will give us things which are beneficial, not necessarily which are pleasurable. Okay, so we have to have faith around that. So what is good right now may turn out to be bad in long run. What is seemingly bad right now may turn out to be a silver lining in future, and whatnot. Stanford speech that Steve Jobs gave, he said the best thing that happened to him was him getting fired from his own company. Now just imagine, it was a public humiliation when he was thrown out of Apple. But then in hindsight, when he connected the dots, he said that was the best thing that happened to him. Why? Because that reignited that passion of that, and that creativity, and he learned fonts, because of which you're seeing this presentation, and we are able to type such beautiful emails now. All that is come from Steve Jobs, who learned all that stuff during that, and the Pixar that he did. And then finally what happened, as life came a full circle to him, the company that he floated was acquired by Apple, and he came back as a CEO again. But how did it all start? He got fired in between. So what is seemingly bad may turn out to be good. What is good may turn out to be bad. So the best attitude a devotee should have is just stay neutral, right? Shitoshna, like God says, Agama pa, Shitoshna, Ushna, basically they come like winter and summer seasons. Just stay neutral, equanimous to them. Just tolerate it. This too will pass. It is a fleeting feeling. Today you may be December, tomorrow you are excited. If you keep swinging like a pendulum, then you are forfeiting an opportunity to uplift your soul. So in that sense, but God does grace us, but then let's not equate grace with things that only good things should happen to us, right? If a Guruji comes to your home and something good happens, you will directly make a correlation. Oh my God, Guruji came, something good happened to my life, I'm happy. Now tomorrow something bad happens, when he comes, he says Guruji is bad. So when we tie our material expectations with all these things, then we are missing out the picture here. So that is the whole idea. We don't know what is good, what is bad, but the point here is, based on our surrender, God does grace us. Okay. And it can come in inconceivable ways. We may not be able to conceive it. We may think it is bad, but it might actually turn out to be good. Right? A lot of people said the hardships that they have gone through, right, that was God's grace. That turned out to be God's grace. From material standpoint, you may say, oh my God, so much bad things are happening to you, but it doesn't work that way. Yes, long answer to your short question. Sorry about that. But yeah, any more questions, or Sandhya, you wanted to add something?
Sandhya, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe. So one thing in line with what you were just discussing, there was this another story of many people who were going in a boat, and like then I think the water waves, like the water became scary, and then the one who was riding the boat said that we are in a dangerous situation. So everybody started panicking, but then there was a saintly personality who through his commander started taking water from outside and putting it inside the boat, and people were like, what has happened to him, he's just gone mad or something. And then the main captain of the boat said that okay, we are all safe, it's not dangerous anymore. And then he started putting water back, right, in the main waters. And that's when he was asked, he said that I was just trying to align myself with God's will. I was trying to help God. If God wants us to die, then I was just helping, and if he wants us to be saved, then I was helping him.
That's a story I think we spoke about in the first two principles, right? Align to God's will and do not desire against God's will. And that is the best guess that person was saying. Of course, it's a humorous story, but it drives home the point around that. So thank you for sharing that. Yes, Monica ji, wanted to add something?
Yes, Radhe Radhe. I have shared this story before also, Nitinji, but then I'm sure there are a lot of people like me who has like last in first out. So the story I think aligns with dealing with uncertainty in life, and then having firm faith on God's protection. So I'm sure a lot many people have seen Arya on in the session. So what had happened was, when my sister Pooja, she was I think 4 months pregnant at that time. And she's a very passionate about working out. So she goes to gym and everything, right? So she did not tell us, my mother and everybody, that, I'm still continuing to go to gym. And then she went to gym. And then I think 4.5 months pregnant, she was running on the treadmill, but I mean, not really running, but then walking a little faster. And she felt a drop in her tummy. And then she just sat. And then after that, what happened was, I mean, obviously she started experiencing pain every hour, and that hourly pain got increased. And then it was like in every 45 minutes, and then in every half an hour in 2 days. So obviously she went to the doctor. They checked and said that everything is okay, don't worry about it. But then she could experiences that probably baby is already, planning to come out. So she again went to the emergency, and there it so happened that the nurse who was checking on her said, you have so many gods, might as well just pray to one of them and then see what happens. And then she says, everything is okay, you're perfectly fine. But then obviously she was not fine. And then she had to tell my mother, who obviously happens to be in India. And then she told the whole thing that, I went on treadmill and then I walked fast and, this happened and all that. Obviously, she was not in a state to, I mean, my mother, she kept her scolding for later. But then she called me Saturday morning and told me that you have to go to New Jersey. And obviously, me being the eldermost sister, I was thinking that, I mean, you have faith in elders, right? I mean, I didn't know what to do. I just had to leave. And at that time, Laddu, Seema was also with me. So at her, phone call itself, I did not even change. I just packed whatever I had and then I just left. And then I, reached her house in New Jersey. All I could see was she was in tremendous pain. Every 15 minutes, she was actually getting contractions. And then it was a pure, sure case of, would have been a case of miscarriage. Because, and then, I was also talking to her husband that how come doctors are saying that it is okay, right? One of the doctors also confirmed that it's a bridge position, but then it'll be all right. Don't worry about it. I said, how come they can say that it's okay? I mean, I'm a mother. I know that it's not okay. And then she was in continuous pain. And then obviously we had consulted her doctor also. They had gone to emergency also. They could not go to the same place again. And that's the only resort we have when we have any kind of emergency, right? We go and visit doctors. So we were calling here and there to find out, like elderly ladies in back home also, if there's some other remedy that can help her. But then nothing. And then I reached there in the evening, and she obviously did not sleep for like good 3-4 days because 3-4 nights because she was experiencing this pain. And now this pain increased. Every 10 minutes contractions were happening. And I was like, what do I do? I mean, I was feeling so helpless that I just went to she's a small altar at a place, right? So there we are very ardent followers of Mahadev there. But then there was a little more punk. I had gotten into Bhagavad Gita sessions and Krishna Bhakti already. My faith was increasing day by day because of small incidents. So I knew, I mean, the connect was already there. But then when I saw that more punk, something in me told me that just lift it and place it under her pillow. And then with full faith, with obviously a lot of, crying and all that, because that's the only thing is left. Because, when you surrender and you know that the only thing that can save my sister is this, I placed that more punk under her pillow. And she was not able to sleep. I sat beside her and then I was, chanting Kanha, Kanha, Radha, Radha, Radha and all that. But with full faith, I know at that point I had full faith. Maybe that was the only option. But then I know that I literally surrendered at that point of time. And then at 3:30 at night, she gets up and tells me, the pain nahi ho raha abhi. And then I was like, pain nahi ho raha as in since how long? Is it like just stopped? Or nahi bolte nahi, maybe since 15-20 minutes because I was experiencing pain every 10 minutes. It's not happening now. I said, don't be so happy. Lie down and let's observe it for some more time. Continuous 2 hours, she did not get pain. A little pressure was there, but no pain. Then she's like, Dio, I want to sleep for some time. I said, go to bed and sleep. I was happy that something happened. I don't know, it was my imagination or whatever, but I just saw more punk around her, swirling like this. It could have been my imagination for sure, or maybe not. I don't know. But that happened. And then second day, so she slept for like 5-6 hours, good 5-6 hours. Got up and she was like jumping. I said, "Nee, I'm happy." I said, "Because of your jumping, only that thing happened. So, just lie down and, elevate your legs." She was telling me that a little pressure is there. But then at that day, that pressure was also gone. As if nothing happened. As if nothing happened. I don't know. This is the most profound memory I have. And little Arya, now she just met Swamiji also, and one of the devotees said, Swamiji, aapki purani bhakt aa gayi. So many things like this happens, but this was something that happened right in front of me. And I know for sure that if you surrender, miracles happen. I mean, I had to share this story. I mean, at that time, I was like, I couldn't explain these things without crying. But now I'm so used to telling people that this has happened and all that. So I thought I'll share that.
Oh, thank you for narrating. I know you narrated this story to me before as well, and it's the same feeling I'm having. What you would have felt at that moment when you give up all the hope and you see something special has happened. Intuitively, right? Something has happened. Maybe that is Kana's ways of teasing us or establishing our faith for good. Those kind of things. Basically, devotees, they don't look at miracles as miracles anymore. They start understanding the deeper principles and simply accept it and keep moving along. See, even to have a desire of seeing a miracle to work in our favor is also something we have to let go of, right? It happens, so be it. But thank you for sharing that. These are the things, right, which establish the faith that when you do something with complete faith, things which we call miracles become commonplace at that moment, right? Yeah, it's something similar to what Dr. Prasad experienced as well, I'm very sure. Yes, go ahead, please.
Just wanted to add one more thing, Nitinji. And I haven't told this thing in the class, that after that, obviously she became very cautious about, walking and all that. But then she started getting up in the morning at 4:30 and started listening to Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, or Krishna songs and all that, right? So when that started happening, and obviously when Arya grew 7 months, 8 months, she used to wake her up 4:30 in the morning, kicking her. And then I think until she was born, she used to go for a walk at 4:30 in the morning and listen to the same songs. And the day when, and day of the delivery, right, she was not coming out because same songs were playing. So she called me. She's like, "Dee, should I continue listening because she's not coming out? I mean, doctors are saying it's time already, but she's not coming out." I was like, "You know what? Stop listening to those songs. Maybe she's enjoying there inside." She stopped, and after an hour, we had her.
No, that is great to know. See, your faith converted 2 more people into ardent followers as well, right? Your sister, she's not on session today, but I see her pretty regularly along with her daughter.
Yeah, she's traveling. Yeah.
Right. Now she has become, I saw her meet Swamiji in Bombay, and she's pretty regular now on the sessions. Every day,
Yeah.
Arya is also listening as if, intently she's getting it. This is nice, right? So your faith, it's very, in fact, faith is more infectious than COVID, Delta variant, okay? It can spread around. So surround yourself with satsangis who have a lot of faith, and the magic will rub off on you as well. It's very, very infectious, this faith. But thank you again for sharing that story. I mean, that was the whole idea. So I put tick marks for all of you, okay? If you want a cross anywhere, let me know. That is where the discussion would happen. Actually, these principles can be applied in any situation that you are in, okay? But if you think otherwise, or you are having a little difficulty grappling with it, what would it mean in this scenario? Let's have that discussion. We do have time on that, and that was the whole idea. I see Kumarji has raised his hand for a while. Yes, Kumarji.
Jai Shri Ram, Jai Hanuman.
Yes,
So I wanted to share something which people in the South might know. There was a poet. He used to write beautiful songs for the movies. Those things which were really soul-searching, thought-provoking songs. But he was in the midst of people who were atheists, and he never believed in God and all that stuff. But he used to make movies with people who believed in God and all that stuff. One day he had a real bad accident. He was the one injured a lot. The guy who believed in God just got away with just minor scratches, but whatever it is. So the person who believed in God went to the Kanchi Swami, and then he kind of told him about this. And Kanchi Swami, he said, I know what has happened. Okay, this is his turning point. So I'm going to give you some vibhuti. So just put it on his forehead, and he'll be fine, because it's a rebirth for him. And this person, who was actually a producer, he went there, but he was so scared of this guy because he's a very powerful guy as well. So he said, if I put vibhuti on his forehead, he's going to get really upset. So I'm going to keep that packet under his pillow. And miraculously, he, within a few days, he gets okay. Like, it was what doctors call a miracle. And then he said, well, I saw something under my pillow, and then who kept that? And then this person sheepishly says the whole thing, what he did. And he thought he's going to get really, scolded on the whole thing, but something had already happened. So what I'm trying to say is, everyone has to come to God at some point of time. It's just a matter of time, right? So things happen. Miraculously, things will happen. The soul searches for it, and some point of time, God kind of says, okay, enough. I'll pull you here. So pull you in the path, right? We still have lots, miles and miles to go, but still He will pull us through, is what my thought process is. I like many of these stories, but one of these stories which kind of doesn't sit well with me is this person in the boat.
Boat, right? Yeah.
Kind of puts the water into the boat. I'm like, I don't think so. What I would say is, yes, we have to desire with the will of God, but do the right, good things, at least for us, right? Probably he was God realized or whatever it is, but here, even the example kind of doesn't sit well. We have to do the right thing. So the boat, taking water out of the boat is okay, but not into the boat. So I just wanted to mention that. Thank you. Jai Shri Ram.
That's not a real life story, though. That is just to drive home the point. What person who has extreme faith could go to the extent of doing, basically. But as long as the point is clear, I think we don't need to read too much into that, humorous story, so to say. Thank you, Kumarji. All right, let's move on to Keshavji. You wanted to add something?
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe.
I have a personal experience with me about this faith, and I have already narrated that incidents. If you
the voice is breaking, Keshav.
I can reiterate. Year 9. Hello. Okay. Let me see. I'll open the window. Okay. Is it okay now? So what I was saying is, it happened in the year 1983. I was traveling by train, and I caught the train, and it was the last carriage, and I was hanging outside and knocking at the door, but door was locked from inside. It's my personal happening with me. And I just kept on knocking on the door, and train was running, taking the speed higher and higher. Guess what? After about 10 minutes, when the train speed was like maybe 40 or 50 kilometers, the door opened and I got inside, and the TTC, who opened the door, told me after, when I had taken rest, that maybe God sent me to this seat where he is doing service for about 25 years. That's what he told me. And he had never took that seat. So guess what? And I was surprised how God helped me. And oh my gosh, the doors inside all the carriages were interconnected. I thought it's the last and I'll miss that train. So after 39 years, like last year, I got another message, and it was, God helps those who help themselves, because I kept on knocking on the door for 10-15 minutes. And the tragedy, I got arthritis, which I had earlier. So my left hand I was holding, knocking with the right hand. and right hand got arthritis. So I was holding the bar with my right hand and knocking the door with the left hand with the arthritis. But still, God helped me. And now, oh my gosh, God's messages in the last 3-4 months during meditation that I'm getting, awesome. Looks like it's the last life. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe Keshav ji. Thank you for sharing that. See, it's a matter of realization. Some people may call it coincidence, like, the couple of stories, but it's a matter of realization. There are times God has his way to reveal himself. They say, right, the coincidence is something God choosing to remain anonymous, and inspiration is something that God choosing to disclose his identity at times. So who inspired that TT? People say it might have been a coincidence, but your gut, your intuition would tell you it was something different that happened on that particular day. And I'm sure a lot of us would have had this kind of experience. We can continue to build on that. I may have a few experiences to share as well, but let's hear from, yes, Sudhakarji, then we'll come to you, Sandhya. Sudhakarji, you wanted to add something?
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. Radhe Radhe, Sudhakarji.
The matrix, what you mentioned.
Yes, we can.
Saying about the God's desire. My perspective is actually we are not in a position to judge what God desires us. What I think I can say is just we have to accept the situation with the consciousness, everything. Whatever you try your best, you need to try your best and then leave it to the God. There's a NATO. Don't wait for the outcome. For example, the patient is diagnosed with a cancer, or the doctor says he's not going to live. So you cannot say that, oh, it is God desire, I will not treat him. That is also not the case, right? So we have to do our job, whatever best we can do, and just leave the result, as you said, the NATO. In short, I feel that is the one there. We can apply all these tick marks, I think is applicable to the situation. That's what I thought to share my perspective.
We still have to do the needful. That is very true, because we have to put in our effort around it, right? There's another story, human story, where the guy, his ship was drowning and people said, come with us. We've got some lifeboats. He said, no. If God desires, then he will save me. And then he refuses that. And then the last person goes, he said, well, you have the last lifeboat coming. Please come with us. He said, no. If God desires, then he will save me. And then what happens after a while? A chopper comes. He said, give me your hand. He said, no, if God desires, he'll save me. Finally, the ship drowns. He dies. He meets Yamaraj, God, upstairs. He said, God, I trusted you. You did not save me. He said, who do you think was telling, sending the helicopter and that extending that hand? Who do you think was that? So you did not do that. So we have to do what is needed from our side and then leave it to God. It doesn't mean you become fatalist. Okay, so some people don't understand. They think, okay, surrender means leave everything to God. See, leaving everything to God means we are asking seva from God. Doesn't work that way. We do our bit and then leave it to God, right? And have acceptance about things which are beyond our control. Then don't complain, but we still have to put in our best in whatever we are supposed to do and then leave it to God's will. Do your best and leave to God the rest. That's the whole idea. Thank you, Sudhakarji, for reiterating that. Yes, Anja, go ahead.
So regarding these tick marks, so only I think we had a discussion about it yesterday as well. But the last column, I wanted to get clarification on. One thing is to acknowledge that I think I have surrendered in this situation. And another thing is to kind of develop a pride that I have surrendered. So is it always straightforward to distinguish between these two?
It's not straightforward, actually. See, it's again, this is something beyond our ability as such. Okay, that's where you need grace of Guru. He will keep that pride in check. Okay, that is why the role of Guru is very important in life. You think you can crack it on your own? You cannot. You need a grace of your Guru to keep check on your pride, because pride can rear its ugly head in a lot of subtle ways without you realizing it at all. So this pride aspect of it, see, when you have reached that, if let's say you have perfected the first 5 stages, in fact, it's not sequential, all can go hand in hand and in parallel, right? But let's say you have reached close to perfection, then of course you would be, your Guru would be, and God would be facilitating the process of keeping your pride in check there as well. Okay. unless you are swelling your pride along the way as well. But since it is an important landmark, it is called out here. But of course, you need grace of Guru to keep that pride in check. Everybody has some kind of a pride. It may not come out so evidently, but everybody has, right?
And
Even
as
a
you
person who
said,
sweeps the floor has pride.
like it's the first thing to come and last one to go, right? So
Because ahamkar aspect which comes because of the form, right, that we get. So, but you need that as well, but keep it in perspective. That is the whole idea. We spoke about this concept, right? Like if your flesh is, there's a thorn in your flesh, the problem, then you need a thorn to take it out. So using this ego, we need to keep our ego in check. You'll still have that feeling, I'm working on it, right? But once it is complete, the thorn is taken out, then you throw that away, both the thorns away, then the thorn is not needed. So work using your ego, you'll work on this ego, and then finally that ego will also melt away with the grace of Guru. That is how it happens. But always it has to be a constant check, because you have to fake it until we make it, right? And fake it means in the sense that keep on reminding, reiterating it in your head. Conversely, it will happen as well. So sometimes you feel and then it comes out. But if it is not coming out naturally, you keep on repeating it. That your subconscious will get trained around that as well. But yeah, this step is very important to keep a check in it. And then see, yesterday we spoke about losing a near and dear one, and a lot of people narrated their personal life incidents around it, right? Very touching discussions we had, pretty intense as well. But yeah, there is absolutely no situation where we can't apply any of these principles. If you look at it, there's always a reason, right? And positive reaffirmation is all that we need, right? There's a story where a guy said, this has been a worst year of my life. Why? Because I got fired from my job. Then what happened? I lost my father. Then what happened? My son had a terrible accident as well. So this is the worst year of my life. The wife actually rephrased it. She said, this has been the best year of my life. I got fired from my job. It gave me opportunity to reflect on what I need to do, and I now have more time for things that I always wanted to do. My father died, right? He was anyway becoming uneasy in old age. Maybe it was time for him to move on, and he got relief from all the pain and misery that he would have otherwise suffered. Our son had an accident, but good thing, it was just a broken bone. It could have been much worse. So it really depends on how we think about things, and how we can positively reframe it to our advantage, and that would help us increase the spirit of surrender as well. So there's no situation basically that we experience in our life where you can't apply this principle. That was the point I was trying to drive. And I think we have had a pretty good intense discussion on this topic. We'll have a couple of more sessions, by the way, on this topic. I wanted to peel some more layers of surrender and some of the pitfalls, so that we make it complete set of discussion without leaving any stone unturned on this discussion. Please fill out the feedback tracker if you have any more questions related to this topic. We could always talk about that in our upcoming sessions. Any more questions?
there is a message that has come in the chat. Prabhat Bhaiya says, I also wanted to share something, but he's traveling, so he has put it in a message. When I was 6 to 7 years old, I made a murti of an imaginary god from wheat dough and wrapped him with a piece of cloth. I used to feel that God is my friend and consulted him in most of the situations. He used to talk and guide me. I cried for the first time when that murti broke down, and I realized that he is omnipresent.
Who's saying that?
Prabhat Bhaiya.
Prabhat Bhaiya. No, that is good. It's a sentiment aspect of it, right? And if you think about, God is anyway omnipresent. If we look at the story in Bhagavatam of Prahlad and Hiranyakashyap, God manifested. He said, is your Vishnu present here as well? He said, of course. There's no place where he's not. He said, he's present in this pillar as well. He said, of course. He said, all right. He broke it and he manifested. So any object where you can bring in sentiment, whether it's the deity you made out of that wheat and you nurtured that sentiment, of course, that's what matters. In fact, this devotion is a journey of bhav, cultivating and enriching our bhav only, right? That is the whole idea. And if it comes naturally to you, then of course that means you have done a lot of this sadhana in your past life, or maybe you have done it in your initial life. God only knows. It's a good sentiment. Doesn't come so easily to people, right? People build that sentiment with their Laddu Gopal. Some people, they travel with God. They book tickets for him, and and then bhav is something that they nurture very consciously and mindfully. Even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they said, right, in order to preserve his bhav, he will not even go close to the deity. That if I see something imperfection, that will disrupt or distort my bhav. So it's very, very good you shared that, and that's the whole idea. This is journey of faith and enriching our bhav only. So thank you for sharing that, Prabhat.
Pratyusha.
Okay, Pratyusha, go ahead. We have 4 minutes. We have time. So.
Hello everyone. Actually, I just wanted to say something about handling the pride part that I try to do in my life. It's like what I do is I just always focus on something to improve in me, so that and I always have a list like, okay, in this particular time I have this to work on myself, and that will always keep me in check, not bothering about what. I'll always say, oh, I have to work on this, I have to work on this, and I do. And I've also realized, like previously I was like 90% is my job and then 10% grace. But then over time, I realized like 99.99999 is grace. My role is like 0.000. And the more I have faith, the things that I have, like, it just works and it just solves itself, all the vices and everything. And then I have another one. I always have that list ready, I have to work on this, I have to make like that.
Good. I think whatever works to keep our pride in check, which can come in so many subtle ways, I think that helps. But yeah, I think another thing I think about pride, if is like Maharaj and Swamiji explain, is the sure shot sign of pride is when we see faults in others. So it is our pride talking. So that is something we need to refrain against. Why do we see fault in others or judge others? Because we think we are superior. And that is a sure shot sign of that defect of pride being present in us that needs to be mindfully tackled. Thank you, Pratyusha, for sharing that. We have 2 more minutes. Any last minute announcements or questions? We have we fund which one? Sorry?
Ikshitaji had met Swamiji last evening and today morning with a walk. Had a walk with her Swamiji. So she wanted to share her thoughts. Can she do it today or tomorrow? Ikshitaji, are you there?
Yeah, we have another minute only. We have another session. So real quick, maybe 60 seconds.
Ikshitaji, Radhe Radhe. Your feelings?
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.
Yeah, this is the first time I met Swamiji,
and
it was so blissful. Exactly. Yesterday we got the opportunity. I first got the opportunity to touch his feet. That was so much means kripa for me. And then he signed the book also. Then I asked him that I want to talk to you personally. I have some questions to ask you, which I cannot ask in public. So yeah, he said, yes, I'm going to find out sometime.
Wonderful.
I'll let you know. So he told me this, then he talked to my son also. And then today in the morning, we had the morning walk. And there we had a lovely question answer session. And there we had Kirtan, we had Rugdhan. And it was so beautiful how time passed. We couldn't understand. So, and then again with Kirtan, we came back and till we escorted Swamiji to the car. And then he left and then we all came back. So again, for the next 4 days, we are going to be with him only, morning and evening. So I just wanted to share some pictures, but I don't know how to share it.
You can share with our co-host, or otherwise we can do that offline. But thank you for sharing it, Ikshitaji. We'll continue this discussion. Now it's time for the next session. And thank you for sharing your journey yesterday, right? That was like goosebump kind of an experience that you shared with us.
It's all kripa. It's all kripa.
Okay, so thanks everybody. Radhe Radhe from my side. We can stay back for the next session and have a wonderful rest of your day and evening. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. If session doesn't happen for some reason, I'm on travel, you'll get to know in advance, but default it's on until, unless something different happens later. But Radhe Radhe and thank you. All right, over to you, Ajay and Sunil.